I keep hitting the table. Hi friends, it's Mrs. Crank and Birdie. Welcome to our very first virtual art lesson. I am not the best at videos and video editing, so we're just gonna give this a shot and see what happens. Today I am going to be sharing with you a recipe that I found for clay. It's a little different from the clay that we use in our art classroom. As you all know, the clay that we use is a combination of dirt and water and rock and plants and all kinds of things that have been broken down over time. And it starts out gray, but when we put it inside of our kiln, our special art oven that gets really hot, like 3,000 degrees, it gets fired. And then when it comes out of the kiln, it's white and we can paint it and do fun things with it. And we were all working on clay projects actually at school in art class before school ended. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to recreate maybe some of the things that you were making at school, or even try some new ideas. So this clay recipe came from an Instagram artist and creator, and her name is Rudy Jude. Rudyjude. And the recipe can be found online as well. And there are a couple other ones that involve glue and stuff like that, but these ingredients for this particular recipe can be found in a grocery store pretty easily. So it only takes baking soda, cornstarch, and water. And you will need a little bit of help from an adult. You are gonna heat it up over the stove. So you definitely wanna make sure that you do not do this on your own. Get an adult to help you. And I will say, as an adult, it was a little tricky. I'm gonna be honest, it took about 3 or 4 tries until I kind of got it to the right consistency. It was all crumbly or gooey. The first couple times was not going in the right direction. So it might take a couple tries, or you might be lucky and it might work really well for you the first time. But I just want to encourage you, if it does turn out a little wonky the first time, just like anything in art, it's worth it to try again. And it kind of helps to make a couple mistakes sometimes so we can learn from that and figure out what works best. So, I have, and my dog is going to be popping in every now and then, and her tail keeps hitting the table, so I apologize ahead of time. I have a couple little pieces of clay. Not sure if you can see them very well, but they're basically these little shapes that I've rolled into, with my hands. I just rolled them into these little shapes. And they're on toothpicks because I've decided to take my clay, I'm gonna put a toothpick through this one, I forgot. and turn it into a bunch of beads. So that's one thing that you can do with this clay. I am excited to see what this is like when it's totally dry. Then I can decorate it, and I can put some string through it, and I could wear it as a necklace or a bracelet. So you can take your clay and make beads. My suggestion is to leave the toothpicks inside until it's totally dry, about 24 to 48 hours. And I know it's really hard to wait, but that's about like a day or 2 days before you really want to decorate them. So I have a bunch of these that are just kind of sitting on my table right now. I also have a container with a lid that I've placed the rest of my clay in. So if you make a bunch of this stuff and you want to hold on to it and you aren't really sure what you're going to make yet, or you've made something but you don't like it and you want to try again later, you can store it inside of an airtight container. So that means a container that's got a lid, because you don't want it to dry out. So I'll go ahead and open this guy up so you can see. It's pretty squishy still. I've been kind of making stuff with it all morning, but it's been sitting in that container for a little while now. So one other thing that you could make with this, one idea, obviously you can make whatever you like, but one other thing you can make with this is a pinch pot. That's something that we were doing before we left. So some of you might remember, but to make a pinch pot, you start with your little circle or sphere of clay, and then you have your thumb, and you take your thumb and you carefully push it in to your ball of clay, so it's sitting on your thumb like that. And then you all might remember, I like to compare this to the chicken dance, where you take your hands, right? So you take your chicken dance hands and you make sure your fingers aren't spread out. You want to keep them together. Keep your thumb in there, and you are going to carefully squeeze and turn. Squeeze and turn. That's just why it's called a pinch pot, because you're pinching. You're not pinching like this. You want to make sure you're actually squeezing the entire thing while you are turning. So as I am squeezing and turning, it's making this into a little container, like a little cup, right? I don't want to pinch too much on the sides or they'll get too thin, but I want to pinch enough that there's like a little well or a little space in there so I can hold stuff. You can always set it down on the table or whatever surface you're working on to make sure that the bottom is flat. And then I would just let this sit out for 24 to 48 hours. And then you can decorate it. Now, as far as decorating goes, you could use paint if you have paint at home. You just really want to make sure that it's totally dry before you paint it, or the water is going to make it kind of reactivate. You could also use markers to color it and maybe decorate with a cool pattern or create like a tie-dye kind of effect. And then if you're really, really wanting to decorate like right now and you just can't wait, you could always put these things in your oven on a low temperature and just kind of bake it until it's hardened for a little bit. I have not tried that, but you could try it, see what happens. If you do it with the beads, I would take the toothpicks out before you put them in the oven, because they're made out of wood, so they will burn, and that is not a good time. So yeah, I've got my pinch pot, I've got my beads. We're gonna wait a little while and I will show you what they look like when they're dry. And I can show you some decorating tips. Sounds good? Yeah? Cool. Hey friends, it's Mrs. Craig. I'm back and I've got my beads ready to decorate. I decided to use the rest of my air dry clay to make more beads so I can make a necklace. So I have taken the toothpicks out and I'm gonna start decorating them. So I'm gonna try a couple different things. I've got some markers and I've got some paint and we're just gonna see how it turns out. The marker didn't turn out as I was hoping. One thing I suggest is maybe planning beforehand on a piece of paper, maybe drawing a pattern. It's a little harder to create a tie-dye effect with marker than with paint. You can still use marker at home to decorate your beads if that's what you've got, and they'll still look awesome. Just maybe plan it out beforehand. I was a little disappointed with the pink and blue, so I'm going to try paint next and see if I like the way that that looks a little bit more. Hi! So I'm a little bit closer so that you can see kind of what I'm gonna do for my decorating and my beads. I've got a little bit of paint here at home, but like I said earlier, if you don't have paint, you can always decorate with markers. You could also, when you're making your clay, add a little bit of food coloring so that it's already colorful. That's always an option. So I have just poured out a little bit of blue and yellow, two of our primary colors. And some of you may know my favorite color is green. So I'm gonna make my own green with blue and yellow. And I've got just like a little bit of water and my tiny little paintbrush. So I wanna make some green beads. You can see I mixed it together. And here's my bead. I've taken the toothpick out and I'm just gonna go for it. See what happens. Ooh, that's cool. So I'm adding a little bit of water as I go and I'm just kind of painting all over my bead. I think I might do like a tie-dye kind of thing and leave some of it white. So I think that looks kind of cool. It makes it almost look like a rock or something. So you could decorate your beads however you want. One thing that might be cool is if you did the food coloring before when you're making the clay, you added it in to your recipe and then all of your beads could be like the same color. Or you could just leave them white also. That's always an option. It's starting to look a little bit like moss or like grass, which is really cool because it's spring officially. And I think green always makes me think of new stuff growing. So I'm gonna keep painting my beads and I will catch up with you in a little bit and show you what they all look like on a necklace. Okay, so I've decorated all of my beads. I've got 5 of them. They're still drying a little bit with the paint, but that's okay. While they're drying, I'm gonna get a little bit of string and let's see, measure it out. I think I want my necklace to be about that long. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut it. Let's check on these guys and see how they're doing. Not bad. Okay, so my yarn is a little bit wide for the hole that I've poked through it, but I can always use my toothpick. Let me get a clean one. To kind of thread it through. So I'm gonna take my toothpick, I'm gonna place the yarn over the little hole where I poked it through back at the beginning, and I'm just going to carefully push the string through, maybe. Come on, string. There it goes. Okay. So you can see my clay is still drying a little bit. That's okay. Definitely wait a little bit longer before you try to attach them to anything. But you can see I've got my first bead on my string. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the other ones really quickly, and then you can see what it looks like when it's finally finished. I have my necklace. So you can see I've strung all of my beads onto a little string. You could keep it going all the way around if you wanted, or you could just have like a couple in the front. Totally up to you. Some things I recommend that I didn't do: wait a little bit longer for your clay to dry. It has been sitting out for quite a while, but it's still kind of a little bit crumbly. Especially if you're going to be painting it. You could also use something a little bit wider than a toothpick for the holes. You could maybe use a straw if you have one, make bigger beads, or even like a pencil or something like that. And then also make sure you make plenty of them just in case some of them break. And then you can always use any extra clay that you've been holding on to and just add them to your necklace later. So hopefully you enjoyed. If you made a necklace of your own, feel free to comment and let me know. Or if you made something else with your clay too, that's awesome. And hopefully you can show me your creations. So thanks for tuning in. I will post another video hopefully soon. Yeah, happy creating.